They say a nation ages when its leaders refuse to leave. And in Cameroon, time itself feels trapped, frozen under one man's endless rule. For over 40 decades, Paul Biya has sat on the nation's highest seat, like a king who forgot the meaning of change. But now, after another controversial election, the streets are beginning to shake. From Douala to Yaoundé, the voices of young Cameroonians are rising louder than ever, demanding what their parents only whispered about: freedom, justice, and a future that truly belongs to them. This month's election should have been a new chapter, a chance to test democracy and let the people's will speak. Instead, it became another scene in the same old movie. Paul Biya, 92 years old, was declared the winner yet again with over 53% of the vote. Opposition leaders cried foul, calling it a masquerade, not an election. Videos flooded social media, showing crowds defying soldiers, waving flags, and shouting for change. Then came the tear gas, the gunshots, and the arrests. At least 4 people were reported dead as security forces clamped down. Many of those who took to the streets were born long after Biya first came to power in 1982. They have never known another president. They grew up in a Cameroon that promised growth, development, and opportunity, yet delivered unemployment, inflation, and corruption. "I was crushed when I heard the results," one young protester told Africa News. "It just crushed me." His voice echoed millions of others who feel the same, betrayed and voiceless in their own country. Across Africa, the reactions have been strong. From Nigeria to Ghana, from Burkina Faso to Kenya, social media is flooded with frustration. How can a man rule for over 40 years and still claim to be the people's choice? One user posted. Another wrote, "Cameroon is not a monarchy, it's a nation. It's time the people take it back." Africans are watching, and they're beginning to ask a deeper question. Why do some of our leaders never leave? Paul Biya's name has long become a symbol of the old order, leaders who cling to power with empty promises and iron hands. He rules from a distance, often spending months abroad, while his people wrestle with poverty and insecurity. He is the world's oldest president, yet one of the least visible. His government has faced countless accusations: rigged elections, media suppression, and an economy that benefits the elite while millions survive on scraps. In sharp contrast stands a new figure in Africa's leadership scene, Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. He's young, fiery, and carries himself as a voice of a new generation. Whether or not one agrees with his methods, Traoré speaks the language many African youth understand: independence, pride, and defiance against Western control. He doesn't wait for Europe or America to tell him what to do. His words resonate across borders. Africa must stand up for itself. And that's the painful mirror Cameroon must look into. While countries like Burkina Faso are trying to reinvent their future under bold, youthful leadership, Cameroon remains chained to the past. A 92-year-old man still deciding the fate of a nation where most citizens are under 35. It is more than political, it is psychological. It's a wound on Africa's spirit, where progress is delayed not by lack of talent, but by refusal to let go of power. But this protest, unlike others before it, feels different. It is no longer about politicians. It is about the people themselves. Students, traders, bike riders, mothers, teachers. They are tired of promises, tired of elections that change nothing, tired of watching their neighbors flee to other countries in search of hope. The new generation is not afraid anymore. They have seen what unity can do in places like Burkina Faso, Mali, and Senegal. They understand that silence is no longer peace, it is submission. Africa is changing. Its youth are waking up. From Sudan's revolution to Burkina Faso's rise, the continent is learning that power belongs to the people, not to a single ruler. Cameroon's youth have the same power. They just need to believe it. The government may have guns, but the people have truth, and truth always lasts longer than fear. It is time for Cameroonians to rise, not with violence, but with conviction, to demand accountability, fair elections, and leadership that actually listens. A country with such rich resources, oil, minerals, agriculture, and culture should not live in poverty. The same energy young people use to flee the country should be used to rebuild it. Every generation reaches a moment where it must choose between comfort and change. Cameroon's moment is now. The streets, the songs, and the cries of the youth are saying the same thing. Enough. Enough of recycled promises, enough of watching the world move forward while their country stands still. Biya's reign will one day end. It always does. But what will remain is the question of whether the people of Cameroon stood up for themselves or let history repeat itself again. The youth must rise with purpose, speak with one voice, and demand the dignity they deserve. Africa's future won't be shaped by the old men who refuse to leave their chairs. It will be written by those brave enough to stand, speak, and dream of a better tomorrow. As the protests continue to spread, stories are emerging of quiet heroes. Students who printed pamphlets at night, artists who turned graffiti into resistance murals, and teachers who risked arrest just to tell their pupils the truth. In small corners of the internet, Cameroonians abroad are raising funds and awareness, determined to support those still fighting on the ground. The movement is not about hatred, it's about renewal. It's about a generation that refuses to be forgotten. These youth are not asking for luxury, they are asking for fairness, jobs that pay, schools that function, hospitals that heal. They are asking for a leader who walks their streets, not one who rules from afar. Even older citizens, once silent, are beginning to speak out. When Biya first came to power, I was a teenager. Now I'm a grandfather, and nothing has changed. It's time for him to rest. These voices, once afraid, are now blending with the cries of the youth. The world is also watching closely. African leaders are being forced to look inward. How long can they ignore the will of their people? If change can start in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, countries that once seemed locked in endless cycles of corruption and control, then Cameroon too can rise. Even within Cameroon's army, whispers of frustration grow louder. Many young soldiers joined hoping to defend their nation, not to oppress their fellow citizens. The same young men ordered to silence protests are also victims of the same broken system. A revolution, when it comes, may not only be from the streets, but from the hearts of those inside the system too. The role of social media has been massive. Every video, every photo of a beaten protester spreads across borders within seconds. The world can no longer pretend not to see. Cameroon's struggle is now a shared African memory, another mark in the long journey towards self-liberation. But the real battle is not only on the streets, it is in the minds of the people. Fear has ruled Cameroon longer than any president. That fear of arrest, of loss, of hopelessness is the final chain that must be broken. Once people realize that change begins with courage, no gun, no army, no regime can stop them. The fight for Cameroon's freedom will not end in a day, but history shows that no system lasts forever. Biya's era, like all eras before it, will end. What will define this moment is whether Cameroonians chose to wait for that end or to create it. The winds of change are blowing across the continent. The question is, will Cameroon rise to meet them?